Picture this: the African savanna, 2 million years ago. The midday sun is an absolute furnace, warping the horizon into a blurring mirage. The air is dry and suffocating. A few hundred yards away, an antelope collapses in the dirt. It hasn't been ambushed by a saber-toothed cat or mauled by a pack of prehistoric hyenas. It is simply dying of heatstroke and pure exhaustion. Walking calmly out of the tall, scorched grass are the architects of this animal's demise. They don't have venom, armor-plated scales, or sharp claws, but they possess something far more terrifying: an upright posture, sweat glands, and absolute, relentless stubbornness. Welcome to the brutal Pleistocene, and meet the undisputed reigning champions of human survival: Homo erectus. If human evolution were a high-stakes battle royale, Homo erectus is the player who camped in the winning zone for almost 2 million years. Our species, Homo sapiens, has only been stumbling around for about 300,000 years. We are just arriving at the party. Homo erectus owned the entire venue. Today, we're diving into the prehistoric dust to uncover how this specific breed of ancient humans completely rewrote the rules of the natural world. First, we need to completely scrap the textbook image of evolution, that neat, orderly line of monkeys slowly standing up to become a guy carrying a briefcase. Evolution is not a straight highway. It's a chaotic, overgrown bush. Scientists once assumed a smaller, older hominin called Homo habilis simply evolved in a straight line into Homo erectus. Modern discoveries blew that out of the water. Thanks to a process called cladogenesis, we know evolution happens in branching offshoots. Homo habilis and Homo erectus actually lived at the exact same time, sharing the same East African landscapes. Imagine walking down to the watering hole and bumping into a completely different species of human. It was a crowded, highly competitive world. But Homo erectus brought a cheat code to the table: the modern human body plan. Their pelvic girdle and femurs made them obligate bipeds. They weren't scrambling up trees when leopards showed up. They were built to command the ground. This unlocked one of the most overpowered hunting strategies in the animal kingdom: persistence hunting. While cheetahs max out their energy in a 30-second sprint, Homo erectus became the ultimate marathon runners. Lacking thick fur, they relied on sweat. They tracked prey during the hottest parts of the day, when other predators hid in the shade. They would jog after an animal, forcing it to sprint, let it rest for a moment, and spook it again. Hours later, the prey simply overheated and collapsed. They literally ran their dinner to death. You don't survive for 2 million years just by being good at jogging. You need hardware. Homo erectus boasted a brain size of 900 to 1,000 cubic centimeters. While smaller than our modern average, it was a staggering leap forward. With this larger brain came a massive cognitive leap, perfectly illustrated by their signature invention, the Acheulean hand axe. Previous hominins used older-one tools, which basically meant smashing a rock until a sharp flake fell off. Functional, but basic. Homo erectus acted as prehistoric sculptors. They created bifacial hand axes, teardrop-shaped stones carefully chipped on both sides to create perfect symmetry. To make an Acheulean hand axe, you cannot bash rocks blindly. You have to look at a raw cobblestone and visualize the finished tool trapped inside. You have to hold a template in your mind's eye, a concept that does not exist in nature, and carve it out. This is the birth of abstract, forward-thinking geometry. These hand axes were the multi-tools of the Paleolithic. Highly portable, infinitely useful, and easily resharpened. They used them to butcher thick-skinned megafauna, scrape hides, and chop roots. Even more remarkably, this specific tool design was passed down through generations. Young Homo erectus watched the elders nap flint, observing and mimicking. This was the very foundation of shared culture and social education. There is a strict biological rule on this planet. Nothing is free. Brain tissue is incredibly metabolically expensive. For Homo erectus to support this newly upgraded, energy-hungry brain, natural selection had to cut costs elsewhere. Enter the expensive tissue hypothesis. To afford a bigger brain, Homo erectus had to sacrifice another massive, energy-draining organ, the digestive tract. Earlier hominins had funnel-shaped rib cages, housing massive, elongated intestines necessary for breaking down tough, low-nutrient plants. Homo erectus developed a barrel-shaped rib cage, much like ours. Their guts shrank. Because they could no longer digest vast quantities of raw foliage, they had to pivot to a high-quality, nutrient-dense diet: meat, bone marrow, and animal fat. This created a fascinating evolutionary feedback loop. Their newly acquired smarts and tools allowed them to hunt better and scavenge marrow-rich bones left by apex predators. This rich diet provided the massive caloric surplus needed to fuel their growing brains, which in turn made them even smarter hunters. They ate their way to a higher consciousness. Armed with a versatile toolkit and an insatiable appetite for meat, Homo erectus developed a severe case of Wonderlust. They became the very first human species to pack their bags and leave the African continent. And they didn't just step over the border, they exploded across the globe. We find their fossilized remains in the Dmanisi caves of Georgia, dating back roughly 1.8 million years, deep in the Zhoukoudian caves in China, and scattered throughout the Indonesian archipelago. Think about the sheer audacity of this. A species born on the sweltering savannas of East Africa managed to adapt to the freezing winters of the Caucasus, the temperate forests of Asia, and the dense, predator-filled jungles of Southeast Asia. But their presence in Indonesia brings up one of the most hotly debated mysteries in paleontology. Between the Asian mainland and the deeper Indonesian islands lies the Wadis Line, a deep oceanic trench with violently strong currents. Even during the ice ages, when sea levels plummeted, this deep water channel never dried up. How did Homo erectus cross it? Did a tsunami sweep a family out to sea on a tangled mat of uprooted vegetation? Or did that enlarged brain figure out how to lash logs together into primitive rafts? If they deliberately navigated open water, they were the world's first seafarers, conquering the ocean millions of years before recorded history even began. To truly grasp the chaotic, unpredictable nature of prehistoric survival, look at what happens when these ancient travelers get stranded. In 2003, archaeologists digging in the Liangbua cave on the remote Indonesian island of Flores found something mind-bending. They unearthed a skull, but it was tiny. Initially assumed to be the skeleton of a human child, the fully worn teeth and fused bones revealed a shocking truth. This was a 30-year-old adult female, but she stood exactly 1 meter tall, about 3 feet, and possessed a brain the size of a large grapefruit. The scientific community was thrown into absolute chaos. They named this new species Homo floresiensis, but the world immediately dubbed them the Hobbits. How does a tiny, small-brained human exist a mere 50,000 years ago, sharing the planet with us and the Neanderthals? The leading theory points directly back to our great travelers, Homo erectus. It is believed a population of Homo erectus made it across those treacherous waters and became trapped on Flores. Once there, they were subjected to a brutal evolutionary phenomenon known as Foster's rule, or insular dwarfism. On a small island with strictly limited food, Being a 6-foot-tall, energy-guzzling marathon runner is an evolutionary death sentence. Nature took its scalpel and started trimming the fat. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the population shrank. Only the smallest individuals survived to pass on their genes. But do not let their size fool you. Inside that cave, alongside their tiny bones, archaeologists found intricately crafted stone tools, charred bones of giant rats, and the remains of Stegodon, an extinct dwarf elephant. They shared this island with apex predators like giant 2-meter-tall carnivorous storks and venomous Komodo dragons. Imagine the sheer bravery required. These 3-foot-tall humans, armed with sharp rocks and wooden spears, coordinated in groups to hunt dwarf elephants and defend themselves against giant reptilian dragons. Their brains shrank, but the neurological rewiring allowed them to retain the razor-sharp cunning of their ancestors. The Hobbits of Flores are the ultimate proof that the hominin spirit refuses to be extinguished, no matter how badly the deck is stacked against it. Despite their unparalleled run, Homo erectus eventually faded into the fossil record. In Africa, they evolved into Homo heidelbergensis, handing the baton to the ancestors of Neanderthals and us. The isolated pockets in Asia eventually succumbed to changing climates or competition. Endless debates remain. Did they master fire? Ash layers are notoriously hard to distinguish from natural lightning strikes. Did they have complex language? Their spinal columns suggest they lacked the fine motor control for complex speech, meaning they likely communicated in a symphony of gestures, grunts, and social cues. They left behind no cave paintings, no symbolic art. Their existence was purely about raw survival. But as we look back at their 2-million-year reign, there is a profound truth. The legacy of Homo erectus and their Hobbit offshoots offers a crystal-clear message for us today. The greatness of humanity has never been forged in isolation. An individual Homo erectus alone on the savannah was just a slow, weak, fleshy snack for a hungry hyena. They survived the brutal gauntlet of the Pleistocene not because of individual strength, but because of radical cooperation. They learned to share the knowledge of making tools. They shared the immense risks of hunting megafauna. They supported their young and their elderly through harrowing migrations into the absolute unknown. Nature has a very strict rule. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to survive for 2 million years, cross oceans, outlast ice ages, and conquer a hostile planet, you absolutely must go together. We often forget that our greatest evolutionary superpower isn't our technology or our individual intelligence. It is our capacity to cooperate, to empathize, and to rely on one another as a community.